Yeah. Would you like to, you want us to let you know when you're at 5 minutes and at 2 minutes?
Yes, please. Sure.
Okay. Can I ask you to run this? Yeah. Great. Thank you. Okay. So let me explain. So my name is Jeff Deese, as you know. I direct the Institute for Business Ethics and Sustainability, and I direct the International Business Ethics and Sustainability Case Competition. I want to explain officially that I am serving as a senior judge because unexpected to us, we realized that one of you has a friendship with our judges. And so that represents a perception of or potential conflict of interest. And it's important from a business ethics standpoint that we always manage any potential conflicts of interest transparently, and that's what we're doing. So I'm serving as the senior judge because in a corporate environment where we manage any kind of issues of potential or real conflicts of interest, sometimes the most responsible professional decision is to recuse oneself from a specific role. I've done that in board roles that I've had. I've had to professionally, fill out conflict of interest forms and attest to these. It's just part of what we manage in business and in business ethics. And so I just want to publicly state, not just for you, but for the competition, that we are managing this and we're managing it transparently. Okay? Now, let's focus on you guys. So, I'm going to read an introduction, and then we're really looking forward to your presentation. After I read the introduction, I've already introduced myself, but I'll pass the mic around so that your judges can also introduce themselves, okay? In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that is viable on all 3 counts. During the time, you will not be interrupted. When you're finished, the judges will ask you questions for about 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, you and the judges stay in character that you've assigned to them. After the Q&A period, then the roles will come off and the judges will share observations and how they experience your presentation. Okay? So let me pass this around and ask the judges to introduce themselves and their professional roles.
Hello, I'm Doug Wolf, hail from Northern California. I'm a global real estate developing consultant and huge on sustainability.
Thank you. Hi, I'm
Is that?
okay. Hi, I'm Norma Miranda Cole. I am a worldwide product strategy executive, and it's my 5th versus year judging these.
Hi, my name is Ali Feruzzi. I'm CFO for the PAC Group. It's a manufacturing, engineering, and project management company, and it's my 4th year doing this.
Hi, my name is Mike Galvin. I have a small business helping adults with disabilities find jobs with easy systems, and it's my 3rd year judging competition.
I'm a refused judge.
And thank you. You're up.
Hi, we are Aura Consulting Group, and today we will be presenting to Tarte Cosmetics. My name is Lay Mazina.
Hi, I'm Sidlali Gutierrez. And I'm Angelia Finnicaro.
So we first are going to start off by talking about our table of contents. First, we're going to be going through the Tarte mission statement, and then we're going to be talking about our sustainable development goals, our proposed solution, and how we think that Tarte can become more ethical, the ethical viability of that solution, the legal viability, the financial viability, and then we will look forward onto the beauty and cosmetics industry and how the industry is continuously changing, then end with a conclusion. So we first wanted to start off by reading Tarte's mission statement, which is, at Tarte, we believe in breaking down beauty boundaries, shattering stereotypes, and being kind. We believe in high performance and natural. So you may be wondering, what does high performance truly mean to us, and how do we interpret that as Tarte Cosmetics? And through that, it's because these ingredients not only are naturally derived, but they have other ingredients designed to perform. This presentation specifically, we are focusing on the naturally derived side of things.
As you are all aware, as consumers engage with firms under the premise that they are honest and transparent about the products that they, or firms are honest and transparent about the products and statements of As you know, as consumers, you engage with firms under the premise that they are honest and transparent about their products and statements. We at Aura Beauty Consulting have identified that Tarte Cosmetics leverages natural ingredients such as mica, shea butter, and coconut oil, all which have been historically linked to unethical labor and mining practices. This includes the use of child labor, as well as environmental degradation through excess resource extraction. Tarte's inability to uphold human dignity within the supply chain poses many issues, including infringing upon consumer autonomy, as well as environmental degradation with excess resource extraction. Thus, we at Aura Beauty Consulting hope to provide financial, legal, and ethical solutions that will align Tarte's business operations with their sustainable and ethical goals. So in accordance with SDG's Sustainable Development Goal number 12 of responsible consumption and production, we propose 4 solutions. First, we want to ensure that human dignity is upheld in our supply chain by changing our vendors to be only certified ethically sourced. Next, we want to increase transparency between our business operations and our consumers by providing transparency reports. Next, we want to further our sustainability initiatives by implementing a recycling program. And finally, changing our marketing strategy to promote our newfound ethical and sustainable goals. So, our first order of business is ensuring that all of our ingredients are certified ethically sourced. As you see here, these are a list of some of our ingredients along with certified ethically sourced vendors. Now, while there could be production system changes as well as experimentation with formulation as we switch ingredients, we still believe that this is the most financially sufficient and ethically viable solution. Some of these vendors, such as Serendipal, are actually shared by other certified ethically sourced companies such as Dr. Bronner, which is a very well-known soap company. And essentially, our main goal here is to ensure that we're upholding human dignity within our supply chain by ensuring that gender inequality and exploitative labor practices are done away with. Once that issue is fixed, we want to increase our transparency of operations with our consumers so that they have greater consumer autonomy and they're able to make more informed decisions. We would do this by collaborating with Bluebird, which is an industry-leading platform which provides sustainability and climate impact reports on all of their products. We would leverage this platform to, again, increase consumer autonomy so they can make more fully formed decisions. Next, furthering our sustainability initiatives, we would partner with TerraCycle. TerraCycle is already being leveraged by corporations and individual households to monitor their consumption. Essentially, TerraCycle provides you with a box which you fill up with empty containers and then are able to send back to TerraCycle. And beyond just monitoring our own, Tarte's own consumption or overconsumption that is, we could also incentivize our customers to utilize this platform as well so that they can monitor their consumption and further sustainability within this industry. And finally, tying this all together, we want to change our marketing strategy. So Tarte is well known for their glamorous and fun and luxurious brand trips where they leverage brand ambassadors and influencers to really promote the fun side of beauty. However, in this changing age where, overconsumption, we're plagued by overconsumption, Sustainability is often an afterthought. We really want to change our marketing strategy to not only talk about the fun of beauty, but actually about the change towards more sustainable practices. So with that being said, instead of sending our influencers out to Bora Bora frolicking on the beach, instead we would like to send our influencers to where we're actually ethically sourcing our ingredients, where our consumers get a first-hand glance at the love and the passion that we put into our products. On our home front, we can even leverage marketing through Ulta and Sephora, displaying new stands that really promote our ethical and sustainable goals. And essentially, we really just want to leverage our marketing to enact change rather than promote just the fun and beauty of aspect of this industry.
So next, we're going to be talking about the ethical viability of our solution and where we see Tarte currently falling short. So first, our main goal is to protect human dignity. We have identified Tarte's biggest problem with child labor exploitation, and the way that we have seen Tarte doing this is through their supply chain processes. Tarte is competing in an oversaturated cosmetic industry that is consistently changing, and new brands are always popping up with different tag names, with greenwashing and different things of that nature. So Tarte is always having to take these shortcuts in order to decrease their costs and increase profitability in order to stay afloat. However, something that we have noticed is there are a lot of human rights violations through their sourcing of mica and shea butter specifically. The main place that Tarte sources their mica is in Madagascar, and unfortunately most of the people that are doing this sourcing are children from around the age of 4 years old and their families, and they are consistently every day putting their lives at risk just to be able to keep food on their table. Next, the shea butter industry is very female-led, but the issue with that is that these women are never seeing the profit from their work. It's still ending up at the top of society with the wealthy people. So we are hoping that through changing the supply chain processes, we can allow for better working conditions. Next, we want to protect the consumer's dignity. The consumer is the most important stakeholder. They are the ones who are buying the product. So we want to build an honest and transparent relationship between the brand and the consumer, which would allow consumers to create or make purchasing decisions based on their actual needs, preferences, and values, not what is being marketed towards them as what they need. So we hope to understand the consumer's needs and provide accessible solutions through our solution. And keeping in theme with the marketing strategy, Tarte is their approach to marketing is very over the top and glamorous, promoting luxurious trips and a lot of overconsumption, which directly feeds into the scarcity mindset. The average consumer can't keep up with the things that they are viewing influencers participating in, specifically when it comes to the amount of products. So we hope to change the way that they leverage influencers instead of preying on consumer scarcity to actually be talking about how to decrease that consumption. Because we know that while Tarte is using these naturally derived ingredients, the earth can't keep up with reproducing as fast as we are consuming. So through our different variations of supply chain, we believe that it will help the earth be able to heal a little bit and keep up with how we are using it. Next, we're going to be talking about the legal viability. We have 3 different areas. First is the Federal Trade Commission Green Guides, and that is a guide that is directed towards the marketing teams, really just aiming against greenwashing and figuring out ways that brands can be sustainable, but without using it as a buzzword and keeping their transparency. Next, we would love Tarte to keep in line with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which directly interacts with, it gives evidence of product use safety and effectiveness, and it has directions on how to use the product. The Fair Packaging and Label Act is something that we really want to stress the importance of because this is where you see the manufacturer and the distributor, so our solution would be directly impacting this. We want to make it easy to read, so the average consumer, you don't have to be a chemist or someone who has experience in the beauty industry to understand. And of course, we want to keep all of the ingredients on it.
So lastly, we'll be going over the financial costs associated with adopting sustainable and eco-friendly practices. So first and foremost, we would need to build and establish an internal sustainability team dedicated to advancing Tarte's environmental and social responsibility initiatives. To break this down, this will include our Director of Sustainability who will lead the team, our Sustainable Sourcing Manager who will identify and partner with environmentally responsible suppliers, a Sustainability Communications Manager who will manage both internal and external communications, our Recycling and Waste Reductions Coordinator who will implement waste reductions programs and also upkeep our partnerships like Bluebird and TerraCycle. And lastly, our Sustainability Data Analyst who will collect data, analyze, and report back on findings. This estimated cost per year is around $569,000, which includes both the base salary and the overhead cost. So as previously mentioned, partnering with TerraCycle will facilitate the recycling of cosmetic packaging while also offering consumers a cost-free way to dispose of their used products. This proposed partnership is estimated to be around $75,000 a year. Now, moving forward, enhancing transparency will be key to building customer trust and loyalty with the Tarte brand, hence our proposed subscription with Bluebird. So for $100 a month, Bluebird will offer exclusive features that enable effective communication of Tarte's initiatives, helping Tarte as a brand strengthen its credibility and solidify its reputation. Now, on to ingredient sourcing. We've come to realize that basically we need a change of suppliers, essentially. So this will incur one of the greater costs. So to break this down, this will include sourcing the ingredient, whether that is looking for new suppliers, reformulating the product if we have to test new formulas, packaging and label updates if we have to change any of the ingredients on the packaging, manufacturing adjustments, meaning whether we have to establish a new facility in a new region, and lastly, marketing and communication strategies to go ahead and advertise our new sustainability practices. The costs begin at actually $500,000 a year. So before we go on to Tarte's return on investment, we have to realize that this is a very big issue. So we realize that brands who adopt sustainable practices experience a 5 to 20% increase in annual revenue. Looking at the partnerships, the Bluebird collaboration, the hiring of a new team, and looking at new suppliers, we estimate that the total annual investment to go ahead and make these changes is about $1.2 million. Now, evaluating Tarte's return on investment, this yields an impressive ROI of 108%, demonstrating that Tarte can help redefine the beauty standard and be at a competitive advantage while doing so as well. So lastly, it is evident that this is a huge investment when it comes to changing suppliers. So we propose a suggested markup of about 2.5% that can help offset the cost over time of this investment. And initially it is a very grand number, but in theory, we want to position this price increase around ethical and sustainable sourcing, which research already shows consumers are willing to pay a premium for.
Because the beauty and cosmetics industry is heavily reliant on global sourcing of its ingredients and product manufacturing, we want to discuss how Trump's import tariffs could impact Tarte along with its competitors NARS and Benefit Cosmetics as they have to navigate supply chain issues, increasing costs and reduce profitability. So here the map outlines where our proposed ethically sourced vendors would be from. So carbonate wax and shea butter are going to be sourced from Brazil and West Africa, which are subject to a 10% and 21% tariff respectively. Sri Lanka is a major ethically sourced vendor for coconut oil, which is where serendipol is, and that's what Dr. Bonner uses, and they're subject to a 44% tariff. Now, currently, Tarte does manufacture both in the U.S. and in China. However, with the ever-increasing tariff from 54 to potentially over 100%, we know that Tarte is going to have to make some strategic changes in terms of where they're going to be manufacturing their products. However, we are sure that we can address our concern of the child labor and the mica mines in Madagascar by switching to some chemicals which is sourced here in the United States. So, with all that being said, Tarte is a beloved brand by many for promoting the power of natural beauty. However, when undermining human dignity in Tarte's supply chain, products being natural does not give it ethical or sustainable validity. So we believe that our proposed solutions not only provide financial viability, but also ethical and legal, and that are great ways that Tarte can rebrand so that they can further their sustainability and ethical goals in a time when markets are changing and times are uncertain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the judges will ask you questions. Let me begin with the first one. Could you go back to the slide that you have about ethics where you talked about child labor, consumer rights, and gender inequality? So, thank you. So, I have a question about the issue of gender inequality. What I understood that you shared was that in the supply chain, there is a portion related to shea butter where the production of that is largely by companies run by women, but that the profit doesn't go there, but the profit goes up the supply chain. And so fundamentally, that is an unfairness to them, and that is an expression of gender inequality. Did I understand that right?
Yes.
What if it was all men who were producing the shea butter?
If the men weren't being paid, then it would just become an inequality issue. It would remove the gender portion of that, but because with this it has been shown that it is all women, then at least we interpreted it as a gender issue, because and at least in our research, there was nothing that said like why men weren't doing this job. It's just in general the industry is taken up by majority women.
Okay, thank you. So it's an inequality issue, and then it also is factually a gender inequality issue is what you're sharing, okay? And what percentage of profit should those women receive so that it is now an expression of gender equality rather than inequality? How would you help us think through that?
Mainly fair wages is what we would propose. It's a little difficult because we are dealing with countries that have a lot more relaxed of labor laws, but we did look into different things like that.
Yes, and adding on, those will be the cost when it comes to looking for new suppliers. We're going to go ahead and establish those once we get to that portion of looking for new suppliers, who's working, and obviously make sure it doesn't become a gender inequality or any inequality at all.
So fair labor standards and living wage standards would address that from your perspective?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I was curious to what the payback would be. You did a good job outlining the cost to implement that. And you showed the 2.5% increase in cost. Did you calculate that over
Yes.
a timeline?
Yes, so in theory, Tarte unfortunately does not disclose their annual revenue, but we were able to kind of just get an average, and I probably forgot to mention this, but it's a 50 million annual revenue that we average. So like mentioned, already brands experience a 5 to 20% increase when they switch over to sustainable practices. So just taking the lower end of 5% yields us an additional $2.5 million. So that's where I got the $2.5 million. And obviously subtract the ethical investment, and then that's what yields us our higher ROI.
Thank you. And then I was curious, there was a subscription to Bluebird for $100.
Correct.
Is that for consumers to pay?
It's
Or
for
by-
brands. That's the kind of the general outline, that it's for brands that would like to subscribe with them. It's like a platform where you're able to kind of just be able to show transparency reports on what like your brand is doing. So the site says $100, but obviously we can go ahead and negotiate with Bluebird and maybe set a little lower depending, and see what we can do from there.
Thanks. Maybe a quick question. Who pays that $100?
Tarte would pay it, so
Oh,
Bluebird,
okay.
the way
Oh.
that the company is set up is it would be like
That's
on
the
Tarte's
product.
website, it's in the product description. It has a Bluebird report, and then you can press the link and go to the entire thing, which has the entire supply chain processes through Bluebird, and it has like a ranking on how sustainable they are.
Thank you. Clearly, I need to be a better informed board member here.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions around prioritization or maybe ranking of importance within those 4 areas you mentioned, right? So the solution focuses on 4 areas. It sounds like, from what you presented, changing vendors, not just financially, a big commitment, but timing, right? Like, we're going to have to reformulate this, the formula and everything else. If you could rank these in which are most important, could we just start by paying the $100 a month and get on the Bluebird subscription with what we already do? Is that something we could do, or do we have to do all 4 of these areas?
For us, we believe that changing the vendors is definitely like the most important issue, because our greatest concern is the child labor and like the undermining of human dignity. And essentially, like, we could provide transparency reports to our consumers, but that would only be fixing like safeguarding consumer autonomy. And we personally feel that if we change the vendors and we really make sure that we're upholding human dignity within our supply chain, that would create the foundation that would lead to us being able to provide transparency reports. Because I don't think it would be safe to say we should provide transparency knowing that this is going on in our supply chain, because that's just going to be bad for our brand. So I would say definitely number 1 is number 1.
So we have to do all 4 of them?
Well, I would say we at least have to do number 1 to start off with. The biggest financial burden would have to be number 1.
And then tying to Jeff's earlier comment and question, is there a different way that we can address the gender inequality issue? Is there some sort of profit sharing we can look at with these females, maybe investing in their education to stop working on the shea butter? I'm just curious if there's a different way, less expensive, that we can address this.
Yeah, I think that like paying for their education would be like a great example of something. Even just addressing with the vendors, if we had a conversation with them, kind of just seeing like what they say, getting a more in-depth view of where the money is going, and then even just bringing to them and being 100% honest and saying like, if these things aren't fixed, like, we're gonna move our business to somewhere else, because Tarte has such a strong name. I believe that could at least get the people in charge thinking about new ways, because they don't want to lose such a big client like Tarte.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question, if you could go back, you had a slide that showed the different sourcing places for the ingredients. There we go. This was. So, is what we're seeing here, is number 1, you said change the vendors, and then possibly reform it. So are we going to not use shea butter and use something else, or get shea butter from a better place? Is that's the goal?
Correct.
Have you guys already identified ethical providers of some of these ingredients and kind of have any idea of the difference in the cost From
Yes,
our
so-
unethical current providers to what we would recommend?
Yeah, the ones that are in the parentheses, like for carmine would be Debut Biotech Carmine, that's the vendor. That's the ethical vendor that we would be switching to. So for shea butter, it would be Butter Wise, Mica, Sun Chemicals, and then for the financials.
Yeah, as far as the financials, like I mentioned, it all depends. Whether we would like to stay with our current supplier and, like I said, negotiate something and let them know, hey, this is what we would like to see moving forward, or if altogether we will go ahead and jump to another supplier. And obviously that the costs, like mentioned before, start at 500 and it can go more than that because it all depends on if they're willing to work with us.
Have you guys, in your research, kind of seen the difference between, just for us to have an idea, of unethically sourced shea butter versus ethically sourced shea butter? Be curious to know some of just those differences in prices that you found for us to go the route that you're suggesting versus where we are today.
Yeah, so we didn't go in depth as to like the pricing. More so, it was just more of, at the end of the day, the issue is here. It's presented to us. We can see that there's an issue with inequality, fair wages, child labor. So our main issue, like I said, like mentioned, it's grounded on being able to go ahead and address the ethical and sustainable issue here. So we didn't really do research into exactly the specific numbers in terms of like how much the shea butter is being made at in these regions, more so just the bigger problem in general.
So the $500,000 number that you came up with for increased cost, how did you determine that number?
Yeah, so as you can see, I provided a link with regulations.gov that gave you an estimate of how much it will change, how much it would be to go ahead and implement these ingredient sourcing essentially. So how much it would be to, for example, establish a facility in, so let's say Brazil if needed, or how much it's going to be for like modifying the packaging and labeling. And since Tarte's annual revenue is not publicly disclosed, it's a little harder to kind of say an exact number. So we kind of just went with the average and kind of just went, this is like what you expect to see, moving forward if we go ahead and implement these things. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the question in regards to the sourcing from, I think, Madagascar to the United States. First off, which ingredient is that?
Mica.
Mica?
Yeah, Mica.
Okay, thank you. For that transition over, I see the benefit as far as tariffs, it's going to be for quite a while. Do you have any timeline as far as how long that would take from beginning to end? Like years, months, days?
We're looking at an investment of maybe 3 to 5 years to go ahead and switch over. Because obviously we have to go ahead and talk to our suppliers, do the process, the whole marketing. So we're looking at 3 to 5 years.
Okay, 3 to 5 years for that growth.
Yeah.
And to ask, the other ingredients, are there other resources within the states? And I ask this as far as tariffs. Are there other resources that can be sourced in the United States as well, avoiding any kind of tariff about that?
From our research, we were not able to find any other ones. When we were putting this together, this was before Trump decided to go ahead with those tariffs. So that wasn't our main concern. It was just finding the fact that there are ethically sourced vendors in these ingredients. But definitely moving forward, we'd probably be looking at if there are ethically sourced vendors within the United States. But as of right now, we only are certain about Mica.
Thank you.
Yeah, and going back to the various ethical issues that you identified, just like with the question about, you've got 5 recommended solutions, how would you rank order those? Which one do you really need to start on and why? Regarding the ethical issues, how would you rank order the ethical issues? If you have to solve them, what's the most important one to solve and why is that? And why would you determine that you would start at that ethical issue rather than other ethical issues you've identified?
We've decided that would be protecting human dignity, so the child labor and the exploitative labor practices. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we determined that that's like our most imperative issue because at the end of the day, that sets the foundation. So within our supply chain, if we're, getting these resources in not ethical ways, that kind of creates the foundation of, well, where can you stop there? If we're willing to sacrifice these children to mine these products like mica, which is found in our eyeshadow palettes, beyond that shimmer that you see in the eyeshadow palette, there's a really dark reality that these are children that are risking their lives for our consumption. So if we don't deal with that issue, then, who's to say like what we're packaging, what we're giving to our consumer, natural beauty, natural products, is that even have any validity to it? Because at our base, we're not even protecting and upholding humidity. So that's definitely our first issue. And then from there, that creates a foundation by ensuring that we're upholding our consumer autonomy, because if we're able to address that issue, then we can be honest about, really what is going into our operations, because we want to be transparent with our consumers, but you don't want to be transparent about negative things. That's like terrible for the brand. So once we deal with the child labor and we make sure that all of our ingredients are made like ethically, then we can provide greater transparency with our consumers. And then from there, we can be a force for change. We can actually enact good from that, because if we're honest with our consumers about our operations, from there, we can actually say, hey, maybe we should all rethink our consumption habits and our sustainability. Like, we need to then uphold environmental integrity. And from there, if we are able to, enact change and really suggest to our consumers, like, let's take a look at like our habits, then we're, again, then re-preserving human dignity for generations to follow by making sure that we're using our resources sustainably. So it's kind of like a loop that all starts with the child labor, but it's cyclical in nature.
Any other questions?
Have there been any legal claims for suits against this? Because during the presentation, it was about on the legal aspect, if there's any concerns. I know what's being done is not ethical. Are there any other implications?
Yeah, there's no like legal suits because Tarte doesn't like disclose where their ingredients are being sourced from, so it's kind of just up in the air. But because they're historically linked to unethical sourcing, that's where the issue lies from. But there has been a lot of pushback from the brand in terms of like potential greenwashing, and that's due to the fact that they heavily promote their brands as being natural, and consumers don't understand that just because something's natural doesn't mean that it's it's sustainable. That doesn't really correlate, but.
And just the perception of that can have huge detrimental consequences in its disclosure.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a quick one, please, on that?
Do you guys foresee if we make these changes, it will increase in our current consumers that are looking for this, or are we going to attract new consumers?
I feel like a little bit of both, because our current consumer, target audience is very Gen Z based, more female oriented, and those are the people that historically we have just seen are seeking out these brands that are more natural. An issue with like the legal liability was greenwashing is not illegal, so there's not really like a place that people can come at them legally for that. But I think that through retargeting our audience, it could open up for people who maybe in the past didn't see Tarte as a feasible company that either they could afford or that felt like a world that they could see themselves in, whether that's because like the glamorous marketing or just any other reason.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Good job. Presentation over. Now you can relax. And really appreciate both the effort and really the professionalism with which you presented your presentation. Now I'm going to ask the judges if they have any feedback that they'd like to share, and then I have one thing I want to wrap up here.
You can tell that you were very passionate by all of you, that it's something near and dear and supportive, and it's hard to get my arms around it. It's clearly all the ethical concerns were addressed. So With just one minor point to make your presentation even more powerful is to more about eye contact. And you spoke a lot. You knew the material, and just looking at somebody in their eye for a few sentences moving on will make us feel that it's even more convincing.
Thank you so much. I thought it was great. I worked with product all day, so it was nice to see a different perspective, fresher perspective from the outside. I would say one thing is you were presenting to us as the board of directors, and you referenced that we're trying maybe to be natural, or we claim maybe to be natural. What were we doing right? What are we doing right, and will this take us to the next level? It felt like we're doing everything wrong, right? But then maybe that's not the case. So as the board of directors, I think I would have liked to know and felt confident we're not that horrible, we could be better. So I would just suggest that, maybe looking at it from our side of not just telling us everything going wrong and then asking for a significant investment. This is probably a third of what it would cost a year for any companies to reformulate a product. So you're asking for a big investment. I think it would have been worth it to say this is how to get to the next level, right? Like we're doing all this right, so let's just keep going in that direction. I thought it was great overall.
To jump off your point about cost, this is yet another, I mean, it's representative of a whole subset of problems, right? This is just cosmetics, but it could be applied to a number of different products. So it's great that you guys took the problem on. As you go out there in the world, this is something that really impassions when you want to affect change. When you end up in the rooms where you're going to talk to an audience of people who hopefully make a change like this, the dollars and cents of it usually end up being the decision maker between people who empathize with it versus the ones who empathize and will then help you act on it. So I know it's difficult, especially when it comes to some that public data and all that, but the accurate and realistic and complete picture of what it really costs to do something is what most boards will grill you on as a consulting company. And again, I know some of these things are not particularly easy and it's hard to come up with numbers, but just keep that in mind because that is usually the determining factor because most boards, some exceptions, but most are about shareholder or owner value and that's what their top priority is. We don't like them to be more altruistic and caring about the greater good and all that, but that's unfortunately not what it usually is. So to add persuasiveness to your passion that you already brought to the presentation, which was excellent, what might help you push it over the line is more about the financial. Oh yeah, you know, if you look, and shit, what our average is $1.43, but my this number's up per pound, and if you go ethically, it's $2.15 a pound, and here's where you can get it. It's not that difficult. We also expect those dynamic aspects of it amplify what you're saying and make people go, oh, it's not that big of an ask. And we can then advertise the heck out of this and get so much value out of the brand and catapult us further. That is a really unfortunate what helps affect change sometimes is when you marry the feasibility and financial benefit of it with the great passion and altruistic cause of that. So just that.
Okay, well, first up, congrats. I mean, it's a lot of information to together, so congrats for being up there, right? With that said, I thought it was great that you guys addressed errors. This occurred thing is, I'm sure this was all done way before that came on the scene, right? But it's a current thing that's relevant to what you're up to, so it's good that you put that in there. So I'd say if you can expand on that, it'd be wonderful, but it's a current thing, right? Speaking as far as stage presence, I would say owning the stage more will help you a lot. It's, what is it, I can't think of the saying, but the way you present what you know versus what you know is an influence, all right? So it does help us having more like the stage presence, be one thing. And then just to ask, I'm looking at the syllabus before I came in here. I showed there was a team of 4, which is 3 of you, so I was curious, someone get sick or did it change it?
She had class during it, and so her professor wasn't being willing to.
No problem. No problem. And no score against it for it, just to ask just to clarify. So thank you.
And I saw you distributing the work before.
Yeah.
Very impressive. One other kind of feedback for the presentation and then something to think about for tomorrow, okay? So while you were presenting, I was struck by Tarte being a company committed to the enhancing of human beauty. And that is core to their products, and it's really core to their marketing positioning and their strategy, and it's all about enhancing beauty. And yet in your presentation, then you started talking about some ugly realities in your supply chain. And I was wondering about the impact of going from the TikTok image of human beauty to the picture of a child in a mind, to the picture of the impact of the product use and the enhancement of beauty, to the issue of exploitation and the ugliness of that. There might have been an opportunity to show visually, because so much of your presentation, consistent with the brand, is using visual imagery to really communicate. You had an opportunity to maybe visually communicate some of the ugliness that you're recommending get solved through your recommendation. Just another piece of the presentation. Regarding tomorrow, you're going to be, the convention is you're brought back in by the board now, and we want you just to talk about the ethical parts. And I was really struck by your conversation about how central human dignity is, and if there is a commitment to human dignity, and that creates a culture, a virtuous culture, and a virtuous circle within the organization, because it really fundamentally honors and enhances protecting human dignity and moving away from any kind of violation of human rights or anything like that that would be a contradiction of human dignity. You've really created an energy of cultural change and cultural formation, really that's central to how you organized and prioritized your way of looking at the ethical issues that you want to identify. That was a very dynamic articulation, not just of the issues, but the impact of responsibly engaging those issues in creating corporate culture that's really energized by those things. But that was different than in your presentation. You kind of listed them. Here you're talking about the relationship among them and a dynamic there. So tomorrow when you are called back in to just talk about the ethics things, maybe you want to think about how you frame that in terms of some of the ways that you answer the questions, okay? Really good job. And it's been a long day for you. So anyway, thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.